Hello, everybody. Welcome to DiscipleChurch. I'm really glad you're here today. I'm here with Hans Grimm, Bill Longsworth, and Mary Ellen Barrow. And we're glad that you could be with us on this last Sunday of the year. You know, at the end of the year, we often think in terms of almost time for a new start. Out with the old, in with the new. And so, with that in mind, we've been thinking about how that in truth, time telescopes and we bring the past to the present, and both of those feed the future. And so today, Bill and Mary Ellen and I are doing some reflections on Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas to come. And we hope that this is encouraging and uplifting to you. Thank you again for being here.
My most vivid memory of a past Christmas came to me in unexpected ways. As many of you know, I was one of 5 children, 3 boys, 2 girls. My father was a Methodist minister. We lived and he ministered in a small town in Ohio, Columbiana, which was in the northeast portion. He himself was from a family of 6 children, 3 boys, 3 girls. My mother was one of 3 girls, and of the 3, mother was the only one that got married. So her sisters, Aunt Mildred and Aunt Bess, would come to visit us from time to time. Not having any children themselves, they sought to help Mother by correcting her manners, and by that they sought to shape us up. For example, there was a constant suggestion about this or that with our table manners, and we kids did not really appreciate their efforts. One summer, when both of them were at our house visiting, my brother and I were washing Dad's car. My brother John was 1 year older than myself, and after we had finished washing the car, we started fooling around and squirting each other with a hose. Well, it was a gravel driveway on which my father's car sat, and so probably in the process we were getting it dirty again, and lo and behold, Aunt Bess raised the window in the living room and called out to us, "Cut that out, boys." And being the humble and obedient child that I was at that time, I replied, "You can't tell us what to do. You're not my mother." Well, later that fall, I think the same year, Aunt Bess fell in her own home and broke her hip. And since Mom was a nurse, Mom offered to have her stay with us while she recuperated, which meant that they put a hospital bed in the room downstairs where we kids kept the things with which we kept ourselves occupied. My brother and I played a lot with an erector set, and for younger people who don't know what that was, it was steel sort of girders with holes in it and lots of nuts and bolts, and we could make all kinds of things with it, and we didn't really appreciate being displaced. As Aunt Bess got better, she sought then to help Mom around the house. One morning she got up early and decided to relieve Mom of Mom's early morning duties, and she came downstairs to cook us breakfast. She made us cream of wheat, Mom's cream of wheat was smooth and just right, and Aunt Bess's was lumpy and stiff. I don't know what we said to Aunt Bess about her cream of wheat, but I have a feeling it wasn't nice. And we ended up sticking our spoons straight up in the cream of wheat and leaving and going to school. I imagined Aunt Bess going up the back stairway off the kitchen, crying. Then, as Christmas approached, Aunt Bess took John and me up to the hardware store, the local hardware store in town, and showed us a set of 4-place settings of Pyrex dishes. The reason for this was that one of our chores as children was to be divided up into 2 teams to wash the dinner dishes, and we took turns as to who would wash and who would dry, and in the process, cups, saucers, bowls, plates got cracked and chipped and broken, and so when we sat down to eat at dinner time, the setting was an assortment of different kinds of plates and china. She showed us this set of place setting of 4 Pyrex dishes, which were much less likely to be broken, and instructed John and me that we should buy 2 of those sets for Mom, which would make 8 place settings because there were 7 of us in the family, and that John and I and the other kids should pay for these. Well, John and I had paper routes, so we sort of covered the brunt of the cost, but our younger brother and sisters chipped in from savings that they had made from their allowance. So I don't remember who it was that wrapped the packages up, but we put them behind the Christmas tree so they would be the last gift to be opened. When Mom opened her gifts, she was so pleased and surprised that there were tears in her eyes. For every Christmas for the following few years, we kids got together and decided on a gift for Mom. The gifts ranged from, say, an electric skillet to help her with spaghetti, to a deep fry to help her make donuts, a crock pot with slow burn to it so it would help her with soups, and a 4-slice pop-up toaster are among the ones I remember, but there were probably others. But what happened was that the focus of us kids then for Christmas, from then on, was not what we would receive, but what we would give. Now think about it. An aunt we didn't like taught us the meaning of Christmas.
Taking my cues from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, I'm going to remind us of a few things about the ghost of Christmas present. This ghost is huge. He's big, he's vibrant, he's jolly, he's dressed in green. This is because he was created in Victorian England, and that was how Father Christmas was often pictured. This was about 100 years before, in our country, the Coca-Cola bottling company would feature their own Santa Father Christmas dressed in red to match the motifs, of course, of their own branding. Well, that doesn't matter, but I just think that's interesting. But this ghost of Christmas present, he first appears in the story, and this is how Scrooge sees him, at a huge table. A feast is there. You remember, you've seen these movies. It's laden with
with meat and cheeses and fruits and desserts, candlelight, beautiful dishes. It is festive, to say the least. And as Scrooge sees him and he sees Scrooge, the ghost of Christmas present says, "Come on in." And so immediately we find the theme of welcoming, which has got to be one of the great themes of Christmas, isn't it? It's a welcoming time. We welcome the Christ child, we welcome each other, we welcome strangers in the ways that we do by giving and helping and all of that. And so I would say that thematically, the ghost of Christmas past represents all of those things. I keep saying past, I mean present. And so as the story goes, the ghost takes Scrooge around town so that he can see all of these celebrations that are going on. And two things are important there. One is that Scrooge's eyes are starting to open. As you know, when we first met him, he's all bah humbug and he's pretty nasty. But things have happened when we get to the ghost of Christmas present. After all, it's the second ghost he's seen in one night. And so he's a little more reverent. In fact, Dickens even uses that word as they go around and they observe beautiful, heartwarming celebrations. But it's not all about jolliness, because as you know, as the night continues, they look in the window of the Cratchit family, and there they see, though the family is full of love, their feast is very small in stark comparison to what we had seen in the first scene. The family has a small amount to eat, and Tiny Tim is sick. I think we can say that the ghost of Christmas present is kind of like a preacher. He talks about the good, celebrates all that is joyful, but he does not overlook that which should change. And as you know, as the story continues, not only does Scrooge see Tiny Tim and the Cratchit family, the ghost of Christmas present opens his vast cape, and there we see images of two emaciated children, and their names, the ghost says, are ignorance and want. And then in prophetic voice, the ghost says, doom is coming if you, Scrooge, do not change. And of course, I think the readers are all supposed to hear that same message. Now, I personally don't think that the best way to get anybody to change their mind is to talk about doom, although, sometimes that has a pretty big effect. But I do think that the story is one more way for us to remember that joy and sorrow, happiness, celebration, and suffering always stand together. There is always some of both. As the ghost observed the celebrations, Dickens takes time to say that the ghost grew and became even more joyful and jolly, reminding us of the contagion, of course, of joy and goodness. But I think it's significant that we aren't left with just that, because suffering also exists. And so Scrooge is not where he should be yet, but he's beginning to open his eyes and his heart to figure out what his response must be. So, for our own Christmas present, here we are in what everybody's calling COVID Christmas. We are in a situation that it's been stated so many times. It's unlike any other we've been in. It's definitely not what we all wanted. But I think we've learned some really important things. We've learned that we can figure out what else to do. We can figure out Christmas anyway, if you will. Our theme all of Christmas season was still Christmas. It's still Christmas. And I've observed the work of nonprofits and churches and all kinds of people figuring out what to do anyway. And I think it's a lesson to us. It's a lesson to us that we have the gifts of resilience. We have the gifts of creativity and imagination. We have the capacity to change and to accept things we didn't want to accept. You know, Charles Wesley taught us to do all the good we can in all the ways that we can. And I think that's what I'm going to remember about this Christmas. I hope that we can take that with us as we move forward. Because as I said last week, we will always live in a context of joy and sorrow. They don't cancel each other. They live together. And we have to figure out how to live there too. We want to be like Scrooge and never experience joy. But we definitely want to embrace the suffering. Because we know we learn again and again in this present, and I think in all of the presents to come, that our real joy comes in embracing what is and using the gifts and graces and powers that God has given us to do our next right thing. Sure, this Christmas, like every other Christmas, there's been disagreement, of course, here over how are we going to deal with the virus. And we could list any number of things that people are always disagreeing over. And I admit, and I don't think it's bad, that makes me mad sometimes when people disagree with what seems obviously the right thing to me. But when we get mad, we also still have the question, what are we going to do with the mad? Will it move us to do something? Will it call us to do nothing and to wait? Will it cause us to find another way around? This is how our life will always be, even when COVID is past. And so I think the lesson I will take from this Christmas present is that we can adapt and we can change. It's a superpower that God has given us. Amen.
Every morning at the hospital, the day begins with a safety briefing. For approximately 15 minutes, leaders from every department share their unique perspective of looking back and looking forward. Over the last 24 hours, basically, each of the leaders share their report, and most people close by saying, looking forward, no issues anticipated. Well, if hindsight is 20/20, what is foresight? How can we anticipate what the unknown future may hold? One of the most difficult aspects of being human is our limited knowledge, especially about future things. So how do we truly prepare for the future filled with unknowns, more questions than answers, unanticipated changes, and issues in life that we just don't know how to prepare for? Picture yourself in 2030. That's only 10 years from now. Exiting your self-driving car in your garage and unlocking the front door with facial recognition or voice command. You're greeted by an automatically lit up Christmas tree and a perfectly cooked dinner. Prepared just as you are arriving home. And there's a stack of presents at the fireplace, and the entertainment center is playing your favorite Christmas songs, and it's all accomplished by your artificial intelligence computer and your connected home. Does that sound lovely? Seamless virtual reality and augmented reality will bring sweeping changes in the near future, and certainly within the next decade. By 2030, you would be able to turn your backyard into a virtual dream location of your choosing through augmented reality. There's a new form of travel being developed called the Hyperloop. And this high-speed bullet train travels through a tube, often underground. And the Hyperloop is capable of making a trip from Dallas to Austin in 19 minutes. Can you imagine? The Hyperloop is planning for building in 2021, which is this year. Speaking of holiday travel, Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic's space station will provide Christmas in a zero-gravity setting in the very near future. You can buy yourself a Christmas in space tour voucher to celebrate on board his ship and make Christmas a spacewalk viewing the planet Earth. Can you imagine? What a change. Well, I like the expression, the past is history, the future is mystery, and we live in the present, which is the gift. No matter what the future holds, certain aspects of human life are constant. I visited just last week with a woman who is struggling to come to terms with her husband's new terminal diagnosis. Through her tears, she described feeling cheated out of time. She asked, "What is God thinking? I'm not this strong." She described how her husband is likely preparing for his final Christmas. But because of the pandemic, his family cannot gather to enjoy Christmas in their traditional ways. Many of us can relate to that struggle this year. It's been a tough 2020. Looking forward, we hope for relief from the pandemic, for better days to come. And in a few weeks, or in the last few weeks, a vaccination has begun distribution that will bring a fresh wave of hope for relief of the pandemic. But we're still struggling to make sense of this very unusual time. Well, for me, Christmas brings with it many memories of the past and hope for the future. But I confess, I have struggled to feel joyful this season. I delayed putting up my Christmas tree much longer than I usually do. And poignant memories of the past seem just a little bit more painful this year. So here's a question for us in this time. Looking forward, how will we celebrate Christmas next year? In 5 years? In 10 years? In the holiday address to healthcare workers at my hospital, Barclay Burdan said it well. In a year filled with so many challenges brought on by the pandemic, and with our core shaken by injustices laid bare, faith can help us conquer fear and carry us through dark times, helping us stand strong when the world seems intent on pushing us down. Moving into the unknown future requires faith. We are people of faith. I have seen you, Disciple Church, participate in generous acts of kindness and social justice. Loving our neighbors is one of the core values of this faith community. And our church has made a bold move to move into faith to prepare for the next 90 years, just as our predecessors who stepped out in faith, who built this great church, starting in the Great Depression. Look how far we've come. So looking forward, we have the opportunity to lay the foundation for those who will follow behind us. While it's impossible to imagine what the church will be like in 90 years, we are compelled by faith to get ready. It's a gift that we can give to all who follow behind. Helen Keller spoke about such things. She said, "Faith is the strength by which a shattered world shall emerge into the light." Now remember, Helen Keller was blind. No sight at all. Light was only an imagined reality for her, and yet she describes it so well. Faith provides the strength to keep moving forward, knowing we do not go alone into the darkness of the unknown. Here in this community of faith, we have the joy of meaningful connections, authentic, life-changing relationships, love for one another, for our neighbors, for God, who has come to us in this season of hope. There's an old gospel hymn that says, I don't know what the future will hold, but I know who holds the future, and I know who holds my hand. Because of faith, because of you, and the love that we share in this community, I can accept the past, live in the present, and hope for the future. Merry Christmas.
There's a place called home I can almost see, with a red front door and a roaring fire and a Christmas tree. It's a place called home, full of love and family. And I'm there at the door, watching you come home to me. Through the years, I'll recall this day in your arms, when I finally found my way to a place called home, and a life with you, where the days are long and the love is strong and the dreams are true. Just a place called home, you and I will always see. In the dark of the night, let your heart come home to me, to the place in my heart where you're always home with me. Through the years, I'll recall this day in your arms, when I finally found my way to a place called home, and a life with you, where the days are long and the love is strong and the dreams are true. Just a place called home that my heart will always see. In the dark of the night, let your heart come home to me, to the place in my heart where you're always home with me.
The Lord is with us, and this is reason for rejoicing. We are formed in God's image and have received the breath of life. When we wander away, God's love remains faithful, finding us wherever we go. And the Son invites us to the table where we are welcome. And the Spirit speaks, reminding us that all are welcome. And so, with all the creatures on earth and all of the company of heaven, we join the unending hymn.
Holy, holy, holy Lord,
When Jesus walked the earth, he taught us to love not only those who love us, but to love our enemies and to pray for them. And so today, at the table of welcome, we pray for our enemies, that good may come to them, that the goodwill of love in every heart would come to them, so that we and they together can learn the ways of peace, so that we and they together can be one in purpose for loving and caring for the earth. Therefore, Holy God, grant that in praise and thanksgiving we may become a beacon of holy light, a source of joy, a witness for peace. By your Spirit, make us one with Christ, one with each other, one with seekers far and near, until we feast at that heavenly banquet. Through your Son, Jesus Christ, in the Holy Church, all honor and glory is yours, Almighty God, now and forever. Amen.
In the New Testament, a metaphor for abundance and satisfaction is the feast. A feast in which all are invited. And as we say in the third part of the Great Thanksgiving, that we may be one in ministry to all the world until we feast at the heavenly banquet. So the celebration of the Lord's Supper is the celebration of the feast of God's love. And as Jesus took the bread and broke it as the revelation of God's love, the bread becomes the bread of life. So then let us partake of the bread of life, and we take it into ourselves as we seek to become again and again people of love. And at the meal, Jesus took the cup, and he gave thanks over it. It is the cup of blessing. And in Jesus as the revelation of God's love, it is not only the cup of blessing, it is the cup of the joy of our lives. Let us partake of the cup of blessing, as again and again we seek to become people of love. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Let us go in peace, and let us go in love. For the God of peace and the God of love goes with us.
Well, it's very difficult to know how to say farewell, especially if you have a little bit of a lump in your throat. I've enjoyed so much being your minister at DiscipleChurch. And today is my last time to appear on the video as a staff member. So I just want you to know how much I have loved being with you back when we were here, back when we worshiped together and looked at those beautiful windows together, greeted each other in the aisles. We'll get back to that someday. And I also think we've had a good time with this. It's been nice to stick together through video and email and phone calls, and we must continue that until we're all back together. I'm leaving you in good hands with Reverend Barrow and the rest of the team. I wish you all well. Happy New Year. The Lord bless you and keep you and make His face to shine upon you and give you peace. Goodbye.